Hi, I'm Ashley Smith. I'm here with Heather Smith, Amy Jacobsen, and Lindsey Murray. We're four psychologists in the Kansas City area who specialize in anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorders. We know that this COVID time has been honestly just unprecedented, and it's posing challenges that we are just not prepared for. And we want to address some of the big concerns that we're hearing from the families that we work with in our professional roles as well as in our personal lives. A recent study showed that 36% of Americans report that the coronavirus situation has had a serious impact on their mental health. That is a significant portion of all of us. And even if you're not in that, you're being affected in some way. So we're happy to have you join us as we talk about some of the really common problems and challenges that we're all facing.
So one of the things that I've been seeing and the questions that I've been getting is, how do we try to find a routine within this difficult time? Routine is such an important element in terms of our human nature. We want routine, especially those of us who are prone toward higher anxiety. Routine is a very important part of our coping. And so when all of this started, routine really went out the window, and we're left with trying to figure out how to find routine, really reimagine what new routine we can bring into our lives to help ourselves cope. Routine helps because it gives us a sense of predictability. It even gives us a sense of control within the life experiences that are so uncertain. And right now, things are extremely uncertain, even more than usual. And so it's very important for us to find a way to adjust to this change and to find routine within that. And so a lot of the time I'm talking with my patients and working on within my own life and talking with friends about how to find new routine within this time of change. And so for those of us who are working right now, it may be adjusting, what that looks like. Still having a set time you're waking up each day, making sure that you have a morning routine, kind of going through the things that you may have done before, like showering, getting dressed for the day, having your cup of coffee perhaps for the day, kind of going through that general morning routine, and then having a set time to get started with your work or with your day's activities. Having a plan for your day also will be greatly beneficial, because then you have something to guide your day, and to really be careful about how much you're turning on TV and watching the news or going to social media, really emphasizing the sense of productivity within your work time or within your family time if you're working with your kids on homeschooling, for example. Also making sure that you're just finding a helpful variety of activities. We want to be productive, as I just described, but we also want to make sure that we're building in pleasant activities, things that we just enjoy doing, and carving out specific time for those activities, as well as physical exercise and time to connect with others.
Some of the things that I've been hearing, it looks a little different depending on your stay home or shelter in place situation. If you are by yourself versus with a partner or a roommate, or with children. And so it looks a little bit different. And I find that we sometimes have to get creative with this, and we need to look at how can we have some routine, some predictability, some structure that Amy was talking about, but it might look a little different. And I find myself talking with people about how can you have some normalcy? Can you do those little things like that morning routine you mentioned, so that you kind of feel like you still have an anchor to your previous life? And also, as I think about anchor points, thinking about how can you put anchor points into your day that either serve as transitions for you or self-care breaks for you, cues to kids. Here's what we're going to do. So I think that can be a challenge and really helpful to do. The other piece, and I'd love to get thoughts from you guys, is about productivity and expectations, right? I hear a lot of things where we need to be way more productive, or kids need to be as productive as they were, but also what's realistic. Is that something you guys are hearing too?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something that, I love the idea that you bring up the anchor points, Ashley. I find that a lot of people I'm talking to, and even myself, are really struggling to keep a consistent routine. I'm the only adult in my house, and I've got two little kids, and depending on what's going on, we have to really practice a lot of flexibility within our routine. So, I know early on some different schedules came out and examples of schedules, and we tried that for a while. And now we've found that we've kind of moved on to something that, has some clear anchor points, like a wake up time. And, we have a daily read aloud at 1:30 with one of my daughter's teachers. And that's kind of an anchor point for doing lunch right before and transitioning. But then within those periods, I kind of have like a morning work period and an afternoon work period. And each day I think of one or two things that I want to get done within that day that will be good for the kids, and, try and really set my expectations of, I'm going to set a couple of, goals that are realistic, that I can check off my list and feel good about. And I've really had to kind of lower my expectations for what my days are going to look like.
I agree. And I think the other piece is kind of what you alluded to with the idea of anchor points, is that we don't necessarily benefit from having a really specific carved out hour by hour type of routine, because even though we are at home, life still happens. We wake up maybe, lower mood or lower energy level, and that level of activity is maybe not realistic for us that day. Or, our kids are just not having it when we say it's time to sit down and do our schoolwork, right? Yeah. So I think what I've been doing and what I've been recommending is that we have sort of these activity chunks throughout the day, and sort of looking at it more like that versus a specific schedule. I think that allows us to have that flexibility. We still are getting the things that we need done, but even by removing a lot of the timelines with that, we can feel okay. If we haven't met a certain activity goal by a certain time, and we can allow ourselves to feel okay with what we have accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
I love that idea of the chunking of the time. I think that's a more realistic way, as you described. And with the productivity piece, I think we have so many should statements that go through our minds. We talk as psychologists a lot about shoulding and should statements, and sometimes even joke and say you're shoulding all over the place. But it's because we have a tendency to set these very high expectations for ourselves. And then we feel like a failure because we might be falling short of that expectation time and time again. So we've got to really be mindful of how we're thinking about our expectations, how we're setting this up, and hopefully identify realistic expectations that don't get us stuck in the shoulds, but to help us feel a sense of accomplishment. I really encourage people to try to shift from should thinking like I should be able to get everything done like I did before, to it will be nice when things get back on track. I'll feel that sense of higher productivity again at that point in time, but for right now, it's okay for me to adjust.
Mm-hmm. I think it is important to adjust our expectations, because on the one hand, it seems like, oh, you're working from home, you have so much more time. And that might be your experience, again, depending on what your shelter in place situation is. But for a lot of people, it's not, especially for working parents. All of a sudden you went from, okay, you have 3 hats that you wear just at different times of the day, to all of a sudden you're trying to balance these 3 hats at once. And it's just not possible. So adjusting some of those expectations. And when I think about with kids too, I don't think it's necessarily realistic to say everything is just the same, do all of the same school you were doing, it's just online now. Now they have to learn new technology. They're missing so much stuff, and their whole worlds have been shaken up. I mean, so have ours, but their whole worlds have been shaken up. And so they've got higher stress or higher frustration or higher anxiety. And we need to take that into account when we're setting our expectations for them.
I think along with that, communication is really important in communicating with the people that are in your home and letting them know, okay, this is what I need right now, or this is what I'm having trouble with today, or these are the things that I've planned to accomplish, like, but I'm floating. I'm not able to get these things done. A lot of times our jobs or our school days are kind of what set the bar for what we should expect to be able to achieve. And we don't have that now. So we have to sort of relearn how to communicate within our families, and also reach out for that support within our homes and in our support systems to communicate what we need.
Exactly.
I think in addition to, setting goals that you can check off, that feels really good. But another thing that I've been recommending is like identifying your values and what's important to you in your day. And if it's, connection with certain family members, then focus on that. And it might look different every day. And if you have a value of, creativity, then make sure you get that in every day. And values aren't something that we necessarily check off, but they're just kind of those lighthouses for us that can help guide our day. And at the end of the day, we can think, you know what, I did something that felt good to me.
That's such a good point to bring up too when it comes to things being in conflict, or if there's just not enough time. You've got to work, but you've got to help your kids with school, and you need to take care of yourself. Then what do? You can prioritize connection over conflict. If it's, I'd pick playing a game with a kid over a battle over a worksheet any day.
Yeah.
Maybe not any day, but at least this day.
Mhm.
Any final thoughts?
And I think along with the expectations comes comparison at times. We're seeing friends posting on social media, like, here's all the art projects my kids and I did today, or just those very kind of obvious comparisons of what others are doing and what we may or may not be doing. And I think something that's really important to remember during this time is that we are all living through, sort of the same pandemic, but our experience within that is very individual. And your circumstance is not the same as your next door neighbors or your friend or your sister or your brother, even though we're all living through this. So I think I love coming back to that idea of values. What is important to you? What's going to make your experience with this more tolerable and manageable? And that can't come from looking at the person on your newsfeed or on your Instagram stories. That has to come from what works for you and what works for your family. And that level of structure and the level of productivity and what that looks like is going to be different from person to person, and we also sort of have to be okay with that. So giving ourselves grace, and also recognizing that we are all doing the best that we can, and our best don't line up on the same day as everyone that we see on Instagram and Facebook.